LTCast.
Good sleep is everything. That's why Ollie's Science Back Support is made with a blend of melatonin and L-theanine for both kiddos and grown-ups. So when your mind won't switch off, you've got something that can help. Your racing thoughts and restless nights won't stand a chance. Find Ollie Sleep Solutions for the whole family at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
K-pop Demon Hunters, Haja Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Lindsay Friedman. Lindsay is a 4-time founder building in the caregiving and long-term care space. She's an entrepreneur by nature and by necessity, someone who sees broken systems and can't help but try to rebuild them. Her current company, LTCareNav, helps families and professionals navigate one of life's most overwhelming moments, planning for aging and long-term care. Before this, she founded CareBloom, a caregiving platform that served the same market and gave her a front row seat to just how fragmented, confusing, and emotionally heavy this system truly is. What makes her work different is that she's not building from theory, she's building from lived experience. She's cared for her grandmother, her chronically ill daughter, and now her parents. Every company she has created exists because she has personally collided with a problem and refused to accept that this is just how it is. Caregiving touches nearly every family, yet almost no one is prepared for it. We don't talk about it until we're suddenly in crisis, and by then, it's overwhelming. Her story is what happens when entrepreneurship meets that moment, when personal pain becomes a mission and building a company becomes a way to change the future for millions. Lindsay, I'm so excited to talk with you today, so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Leslie.
Yeah, well, I am excited because when we talked on our coffee chat, I loved what you shared about what you're doing. And so I'm just going to go right into the question.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, as I said, you're a 4-time founder, but what strikes me most about your story is that you didn't build companies from a boardroom or a business plan. You built them from the middle of real life, caring for your grandmother, your daughter, and now your parents. So can you take us back to the moment you first collided with the caregiving system and knew you just couldn't accept it the way it was?
So I actually first came into the caregiving system when I was 18 years old. I was actually still in high school, but right at the end of high school, I got a job as a nursing assistant. And I just fell in love with elders and what that meant to be able to take care of somebody who is vulnerable, who's in need, who still needs dignity and respect, and trying to find a really beautiful balance of how can you care for somebody while still giving them autonomy and letting them have their space and being part of their journey. And so I came into the space really early on as becoming a caregiver. And what really changed was when I became a family caregiver. And that was, I saw a place where I saw a whole new set of problems, and it became really deeply personal, not just passion, but personal for my whole family. And that experience with my grandma is what really sent me on the journey to creating a solution to help families across the country who are facing this caregiving epidemic.
Yeah. And, again, this is not something that just happens to some people. It's happens to everybody. We all age, right? And a lot of people are caring for, they're also caring for, as you have in your life, caring for your daughter, but they're also caring for, in your case, grandparents, parents, maybe even their spouse. And we're not always, I guess we're not always set up for it because we're not expecting it. It's like, it feels like it's out of the blue, but it really is something that we should be talking more about. And so I believe that part of your mission is about that, right? It's like helping people to realize that if this is not just something that some people deal with, but it could be something potentially that if it's not happening now, that there's a possibility, and most likely like a very high probability, that it's going to affect each and every one of us in some way, whether it's with children, whether it's with a spouse, whether it's with a parent or a grandparent. So I love that what you're doing, and I think that's so important. I wanted to go just a little bit deeper because I know like your story really does again come from that lived experience. I think what I love is, which is so powerful, is when people come from that lived experience and then go out to find the reason why, or a why they have their why, but they go about it and find like what's the solution to what I'm trying to figure out. Okay, now is this something that is out there for other people? And so I was just curious, when you were, again, this is something you thought about before and then it became deeply personal. Was there a time when you knew this had to become something bigger than even your own experience?
Yeah, I'll just tell you a little story of how it really came to be. So I, all through being a nursing assistant, always saw caregivers not giving professional caregivers who
Mhm.
were rushed, not giving the care they needed, and the people who suffer because of overworked, because it's typically overworked and understaffed caregiving, is the residents. It's quality of care. It's your loved ones who you've placed somewhere are not getting the care they deserve and you're paying for. And that was I was taking care of my grandmother. We were very fortunate because she did have long-term care insurance. And that gave us the ability to have help at night, her policy. And it was a really great thing. And the big thing we kept telling everybody was, we really need you to sleep in the room with her. Sleep on a chair. We put a recliner in. She will fall at night. And that's really all you have to do because she'll sleep through the night. She'll just call you if she needs to use the bathroom. And my grandma would tell me in the morning when I would come and she'd be like, they weren't in my room. And I would go to the caregiver and I said, she said you weren't in the room. And they would say, oh, well, she's confused. And one night, my grandma got up to go to the bathroom, yelled for the caregiver who was sleeping in the bedroom down the hallway. My grandma got up and she broke her femur. And it was what ended her life. She only had a few months after that, and they were really bad months. And that was the moment, like, I lost my grandma because of something that I was like, technology could have fixed this. There had to have been something. Families shouldn't have to lose loved ones. So when we really started down the path, it was, how do I make sure if there's a caregiver there, they're doing what they're supposed to do? And I had that moment where I was like, okay, we're really lucky that my grandma had this in place and we were able to even have a caregiver, to someone to help. So what does it look like for families who don't? So I said, we need an encompassing thing because care and ADLs not being met and all of these things can end somebody's life. And nobody wants to see somebody they love go out too soon. And so it was really that drive, that moment was like, this can't keep happening.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, again, coming back to that this is, pushing back on like, this is just how it is. And I'm not, I see a problem and no one else is maybe looking at it. And so what is it that I can do, that even from my own perspective, my own lived experience, which I love the fact that this has been a powerful way for you to build the businesses that you have built. Because I think it is important. I believe really it is important that we come from a background where we have some form of lived experience, like not just theory. So that's my question really is, when, especially like the way you show up as a founder, What does that give you that theory-based building simply can't?
Well, I believe anything that you build, if you don't understand your stakeholders and your market intimately, then you're not going to build something that they need. And saying, like, this would be really cool, or this is a really huge market, I can make a lot of money, and then try to understand the problems from the outside in, you're never going to be able to fully understand because theory of what the problem is never quite the same as what the problem actually is. And I've talked to a lot of people who've entered this age tech space, as they call it. And I'm like, oh, so what's your why? And I've gotten things like, well, did you see it's going to be the biggest market, the market cap? And I'm like, okay, so what's your why? And well, there's a lot of need. And then I'm like, okay, I feel like you might, I hope you find a why that makes really great sense to your families. And I think when you've been there and you understand every aspect of what they're experiencing, you're going to build a product that meets their needs.
Yeah, absolutely. To go a little deeper, has there ever been a moment for you where being this close actually made it harder for you rather than easier? And how did you navigate that?
That's a really interesting question. And I would say yes. And I'm going to say it was really early on. So when I told you the story about my grandma, what drove me to do it was the quality of care.
Mhm.
I probably was a little angry and a little distraught with the community that provides care. And again, we don't pay our caregivers enough. There's a lot of reasons some of this happens. But I was a little too close to it because I really focused on compliance of care. What does this look like for the home health aide or the nursing assistant to be monitored? And it took a while for me to step back and realize that the value proposition and what I could do for families was a lot larger, and to really take a look at what that there's a greater market that's suffering other than those who can have home health aides. And so for me, that was my moment of being too close and too driving towards what I wanted.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, but again, like you still met a need that was out there that maybe a lot of people weren't even thinking about. Because again, we know, which we talked about in the beginning, caregiving can touch nearly every family. Yet most people, they don't start thinking about it until they're like already in it. Like they're something is just fallen into their lap. It's just, this is it. This is happening. And that gap between the awareness piece and preparing for it is where I believe a lot of pain lives, because it's like the trial and error and trying to figure it out and being frustrated, not getting the answers that you want or the answers that you need. So why do you think as a society that we wait so long to have these conversations, especially I know it can feel morbid, but I think like why do we wait so long? And what's the real cost of that silence for the families, especially I believe for women who so often carry the weight of this responsibility.
So when it comes to why we don't have the conversations, I've done a lot of research on this and have talked to a lot of families, and it comes down to fear. Right? Fear of what does this mean? Or if I talk about it, does this mean I'm going to end up in a nursing home? No one wants to face what that looks like. I mean, it's a loss of independence, a loss of dignity. You're fading. It's your mortality. They're not fun things to talk about as a family and as a whole. And I think that's why it really gets avoided. And I think the families that enter the caregiving space and you get there slowly, I think the reason right now that we don't have families that talk about it enough until they're already boiling comes back to that boiling frog analogy. So when you start off, it's sort of gradual And it's like the hot water and the frog. When you turn it up slowly, you don't realize, the frog doesn't realize it's being boiled and cooked until it's so hot that it's too late. And I think that's what caregiving actually starts out as and starts looking like. So the families we're seeing that are in such distress, who you say, well, why didn't you have this conversation like a year ago when there were still more options? It's because I don't think they realized how the heat was getting turned up on them. And I feel like a lot of times when you're already boiling, you have less options. You have less options financially, less options for care. Maybe your loved one can't have as much say in it. So now there's family dynamic issues. And really trying to educate families of like, you need to have this conversation when it's uncomfortable, not when you're being boiled to death.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, your current company, LTCareNav, is helping families and professionals navigate this space right now. It can be very overwhelming because, again, a lot of the time we're not having these conversations early enough because of maybe the fear, like you were saying, but also talking about our mortality can, feel like it's such a morbid subject. And why are you talking about my end of life when I feel like I'm still living my life? So that's, I think, one of the things too that probably trips people up. But can you walk us through what that looks like, what that navigation piece actually looks like, and what when you are talking with your families, when you're helping your families do this, what becomes possible for them when they have the right guidance before they're in full crisis mode?
Yeah. So I'm a senior care advisor. So I help families walk through this. And that process for me is talking about what's going on and then pointing them in the right direction. And I really wanted to build something for families like it was your own personal senior care advisor. And to do that, it is when you enter the site, you're really answering the same kind of questions you would if you were with an advisor. And we take that information and we create a really, really robust plan that touches on every aspect of care: legal, financial, and actually what your health trajectories look like and what care is going to potentially be, what it's going to potentially cost, and how you're going to potentially pay for it. Because there's lots and lots of great options if you plan ahead. And there's also really ways to get to Medicaid that can preserve your assets when you think about it beforehand. So we help you look at all of those things on the plan. It is all free. And we provide you with a lot of information. But for me, what was really important was that just like if you were talking to me in person, I would not be able to help you with every aspect of your plan. So, what we do after analyzing what you need is we tell you, like, this is the person who can help execute on this piece. And just like if you were talking to me, I make a one-on-one introduction to somebody I trust, because really executing on the plan is the most critical piece. Having a plan doesn't mean, like, if you just have the plan and you don't put the pieces in place, you don't really have a plan. So we really help you touch with every person you're going to need, and it's a vetted professional, and we make sure you're all set on every aspect and explain why you need this.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's like you are extending this almost like a know, like, and trust factor to being able to recommend someone. Because when we're in that state of mind, especially if it's not necessarily forced upon us, but it feels like it's all of a sudden, and you're in this caregiving role. I love the fact that you have your own database of people that can support a family based on whatever their needs are. I think that's so important because we just don't know what we don't know. And a lot of the time, again, we're not having these conversations. There's a lot of conversations I feel like families should be having as just part of growing up so that we understand, so that we know, so that we're not caught off guard if someone needs care and you don't know their financials, you don't know what maybe their health issues are, and you don't know where that they could get the best support or who to even call. So I love that you created this company to be able to help those families have a place to start and then giving them the next steps, because I think that can be the scariest part. It's like, okay, like, what do I do now? I don't know. And you've been doing this for so long. It's obviously become, it's part of who you are. And I love that it being part of who you are is the why of why you're helping the people that you do help because of your own lived experience. Because I think that is absolutely so important to be able to, like, again, it with something so personal and can feel so hard and not knowing what to do, and having you lived this experience, it just gives someone that added, I guess it's that added maybe comfort as a caregiver, like giving someone comfort that, okay, you're not alone, done this before, and these are the steps. Let's get started. And I love that. So one of the things I know that doesn't get talked about a lot is enough is like that the emotional and the energetic aspects, or toll I should say, that caregiving takes on the people who are doing it, which of course I'm sure you have a lot of experience around because you've had multiple people in your life that you've had to look after. And I'm sure they're extremely grateful for that. And so many of the women I believe who are listening in right now probably they're either caregiving themselves. And when I say, I'm going to say quietly because they haven't told anybody about it, they're not sharing it because they're holding on to this story. Like it's, I'm not saying shame, but it's like, oh, it's like, it's so much, it's pressure. Or maybe they're heading towards that season of life. So from everything that you have witnessed and everything that you've lived through, what are the invisible costs of caregiving that women tend to minimize or push through? And what do you want them to know?
I think women caregivers are pushing through so much that it's hard to just even pinpoint one thing. I mean, the invisible costs are the stress. We forget about our own health. We forget to take care of ourselves. We are the guilt, the shame, all of the pieces that go through that of, am I not doing a good enough job? Do I feel guilty because I don't actually want to be doing this? I run a large caregiver group, and I mean, there's like 25,000 people in it. So I get to watch a lot of interactions, and I try to jump in. And these women who post anonymously are saying things like, I almost want my loved one to die. I can't keep doing this. I'm going to die. And these are feelings they're posting anonymously because they feel so shameful to even think about. And I want caregivers to know that the overwhelm, what you're going through, is very normal feeling. We know you love your loved ones, but sometimes it feels like you're drowning in it. And I think that is one of the largest costs. But we also forget about the actual cost of caregiving. It is expensive to care for a loved one. In a lot of cases, you are missing out on work, on income. We're seeing now women who are caregivers to mothers, fathers, in-laws, their 401ks, their retirements, everything is being impacted because they spent that time caring. Now, if it puts in your sandwich generation and you've got children, you're pulling from every end. And so the costs are invisible. The costs are also visible. And it's a hard thing to get through. And in some cases, I've written several articles of like, you can't yoga your way out of it. Taking that hour for yourself, yes. Sometimes 10 minutes will help you reset, but find a support system. Find something in the community, see what is out there to help, but don't feel shame about having to do that or for any of your feelings. It's hard.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I love the idea. I love that you talk about community because for me, I think that's so powerful to have a community, especially if you've got a large community like that. That means that they have a lot of women or people in that community who are going through exactly the same things that they are. They're processing their emotions differently, but they're still going through the similar things. And they have people to lean on to say, hey, this is what's happening in my life. Yes, it's hard when you see someone posting anonymously. I know there's that fear of being judged, like you were saying, the shame of it. Like, am I a bad person for thinking this way? But again, like it is such a huge responsibility and an incredible responsibility that these people are taking to care for their loved ones, but they also love them. And so again, like you were saying, like there's that whole shame piece because they're afraid to be seen by other people, even if they're not going to be judged. They're judging themselves, thinking, I am a bad person for thinking this. That's why I can't even show you my face or who I am, my real name, because I know, because I'm judging myself, I know for sure you're going to judge me. So I love that, though, that you have this community and you are there for them and showing them that no, you don't have to feel this way. I did want to ask you, how do you personally handle it for yourself? Like, how do you protect your well-being, like your time, your energy, your space?
So I will say the one thing I learned is the age that you caregive, the dynamic you are in, the way you're living your life, the dynamics you have with the person you're caregiving for, I think play in a lot to the stress level of it. Caring for my grandma was an honor and a privilege, and there were days that were stressful because we had to figure things out, but I didn't have that kind of resentment. And my daughter was really little and she was able to be with me, and it felt more like family time with care in it. And I was really lucky, and it could be that I was younger and feel full of energy. I became my daughter's caregiver, who was there and more of a care advocate when she was diagnosed. We started noticing there were problems when she was pretty young. And that is a whole other emotional toll because as a mom caregiver, you are angry and don't want this happening for your kid, and you find yourself fighting everything. This shouldn't happen to a child. We need to get her the right care. Why are the doctors not helping? So it was just another different dynamic. And now that I started with my parents, and my mom had MS from the time I was young, and the decline is definitely starting now. There are times that, like, I try to give her advice and she pushes back with me because it's just kind of our dynamic, and I love my mom so much, and she's fighting some of the independence thing, so I'm going there too. She doesn't wanna talk about options, and it's a little more frustrating. So I think with that, I do need time. Like, I need to take some breaths, even with the advocating. So my daughter's been super sick the past few weeks, and we've been back in with hospitals and doctors. And it like drains every bit I have. By the end of the night, I'm like, okay, I just need sleep. Like, I don't have anything else to give. And as I said before, you can't yoga your way out of it. But my 1 hour a week that I take for me is a yoga class, just to have that time to wipe my mind clean. But sometimes the advice is not great because their only way to the other side is through, and to be able to take the break on the way through, but sometimes you just have to fight through it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. Again, it is a huge responsibility, and it's not always like you don't always have control of your time. So I love that. I just wanted to get your perspective on how you've been able to manage for yourself, because it is a huge undertaking, but also not just for your family, but for all of the people that you support. So thank you. You're a four-time founder, which I think that alone speaks to an extraordinary level of resilience, of vision, of determination. So I just wanted to get that out. What has entrepreneurship taught you about yourself that caregiving alone couldn't? And how has moving through both of those, both simultaneously, shaped the woman that you have become today?
That's a super interesting question. So I think to start, it's really important to note that, like, my first two startups, not in the caregiving space, were not successful. And I think what it taught me is that you can learn from failure, and failure is not, I think people, when you look at it as like, oh, that failed, as like something completely negative. And I learned that there is so much that you can gain from your failure. And resilience is one of those things. Understanding who you are, understanding how to move forward from bad moments and low points in your life, and kind of that idea of like, this too shall pass. You will get through this, but the only way you're getting through is if you keep moving forward. whatever that means. You can take a minute and wallow in all of the sadness and the distraught, and I've definitely had wallow moments. But what are you learning in that moment? What can you take with you? And I think I have learned so much about grit and tenacity and taking that in such a different way because that failure felt like this is my fault. I did this. I was not good enough to make this work. But understanding that sometimes like other things are at play. And if you're not good enough today, what did you learn to be good enough tomorrow? And that I think really has like stayed with me. And I appreciate those failures because I think that's what helped make sure these two were more successful.
Yeah. And, it's funny because when you started talking, I started thinking, well, it's not funny, but when you started talking, it reminds me, I listen to Tom Brady. So he has motivational videos, and I just like to be motivated. I like to listen to people who can get me pumped to start my day. And one of the things that he said in the video was that all those experiences that we think are the hardest things in our life end up being the best experiences in our life. Because if you approach it with humility and you look inward, they become the best opportunities for growth and learning. And I think that's just in
Yeah.
essence, just what you said. So I just love that. And like I said, I like to be motivated. I think it's just motivating to hear when someone has, done what you've done. Like you said, didn't have success right out of the gate, but you also didn't stop. And I think that's a really important lesson. Like there's always going to be something. And we can either allow things to keep us down and keep us from actually moving forward and keep us from experiencing something new or life in general, or we can allow those hard moments to give us a lesson, like to understand, like, what's the why behind it? What happened? Like, why did it happen? Why do I think it happened? What can I learn from it? What can I do with what I've learned? I think it's all of those questions can really propel someone moving forward. So, anyways, I have a last question for you.
Okay.
I love what you're doing. I believe you're changing the future of caregiving for families, I believe, around the globe. And you're doing it by refusing to let your own pain be wasted, really. Like, in other words, you've taken what you've gone through, all of those things, and you've refused to say, no, I'm not going to let this get me down, and I'm not going to let this stop me from doing some good in the world. So, with the women who listen to this podcast, what would you want the women who are listening to walk away with, believing it's possible, whether they're in the middle of a caregiving season, whether they're building something of their own, or they're simply trying to figure out how to keep going with grace and purpose?
To believe in yourself, to find your passion and to follow that. And sometimes it maybe seem hard, and some days you have to take a break from it. But having a true understanding of what your motivation is, why you want to do it, and to not give up. That is always the biggest thing. Just if you want something, go for it. And there may be hurdles in the road, but don't let that stop you either. Like, look at what's in front of you, look what's keeping you from there, and saying, how can I get past this? It may be hard, but what are my options? What's A, what's B, what's C? And let's try it. And if A doesn't work, there's B. Because everything really is, in the end, is possible if you put your mind to it and believe in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed spending time with you today, Lindsay, and thank you so much for sharing your journey from caring for your grandmother, your parents, your daughter, and actually building companies where you've refused to let broken systems have the last word. What you've created with LTCareNav is needed. I really, truly believe that. And the way you have turned some of life's hardest moments into a mission that will change the future of, as I said, millions of families around the world, that's nothing short of extraordinary. That's, why I have you on Her Extraordinary Life by Design, because I believe that's what you're doing. I know what you shared today is really going to stay with our listeners long after this episode airs. And so again, Lindsay, I appreciate what you do. Thank you so much for not giving up and for not allowing broken systems to rule the day and to really to start making impact in the world. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And to our listeners, If you'd like to connect with Lindsay directly and learn more about LTCareNav and her work in the caregiving space, you can find her contact information in the show notes. Remember, your pain has a purpose. The season that broke you open may be the very thing that makes you unstoppable. You don't have to have it all figured out before you begin. You just have to be willing to refuse to accept that this is simply how it has to be. Because the women who change the world aren't always the ones who had it easiest. They're the ones who chose to build something better from exactly where they stood. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Stitch Fix. Shopping is hard. Let's talk about it.
I don't have time to shop for clothes.
I have to buy everything in 3 sizes to find one that fits. They know me at the post office.
Workout wear is my only wear.
Stitch Fix makes shopping easy. Just show your size, style, and budget, and your stylist sends personalized looks right to your door. No subscription required, plus free shipping and returns.
Oh, wow. That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. Take your style quiz today at stitchfix.com.
Hey guys, this is Peter Rafelson, and I am the president of Electricast Media, and I am so honored today to introduce you to an upcoming podcast called Coding and Jamming with Jacob, and I have our very special guest and host of the show, Jacob Deal. Say hello, Jake.
Hey everyone, looking forward to getting started with you.
Tell us in 10 seconds what you're going to be doing on this show.
I'm going to be teaching everyone how to code from C to JavaScript to HTML, and on the side we're going to play a little music. I think you're going to learn a lot.
Sounds educational and fun. Count me in wherever you listen to podcasts.
Electricast.